my engagement gala, my parents unleashed chaos when my father, Victor, bellowed, "Hand over your $75,000 0-cents research grant to Liam now, or your future's finished." When I stood firm and refused, he shoved me into a glass sculpture, slicing my arm as I fell. Bleeding but unbowed, I locked eyes with him and vowed, "You're about to face a reckoning you'll never see coming." Moments later, the police stormed in, cuffs ready, and Victor's face drained of color. Because my hidden cameras had caught everything, and a darker secret was about to unravel. The chandelier above me glittered like a constellation trapped in crystal, casting fractured light across the cliffside Manor's ballroom. I stood in the heart of my engagement gala, my cream silk gown catching the glow, my arm looped through Nathan's as we greeted our guests. Seaside or again had never seen a night like this. My night, the one I'd poured my soul into planning. At 29, I'd clawed my way to success as a marine biologist, and this was my moment to celebrate not just love, but triumph. My $75,000 0-cents research grant, saved over 7 years of sleepless nights and relentless hustle, was safe in my account, earmarked for a coral restoration project that could change the world. Or so I thought. Then my father, Victor Hayes, stormed through the crowd, his face a mask of rage, and shoved me with such force I crashed into a towering glass sculpture. The world slowed as the structure exploded into 1,000 shimmering shards, slicing my arm and splattering blood across my dress. Gasps ripped through the room. 100 guests froze, their champagne flutes suspended mid-air. My brother Liam's smirk flickered in the corner of my vision, and my mother Margaret's hand flew to her mouth, not in shock, but in calculation. This wasn't just a family spat. This was war. I'd refused to hand over my grant to bail Liam out of his latest disaster, a $100,000 0-cents debt to a loan shark tied to an underground fight club. Victor's assault was his answer, a public declaration that my dreams, my life, meant nothing compared to his golden son. But I wasn't the obedient daughter they expected. Bleeding, trembling, I seized a champagne bottle from a nearby table, smashed it against the floor, and pointed the jagged neck at my father. "Back off, or I swear you'll regret it," I hissed. The crowd split. Some recoiled, whispering about my recklessness. Others nodded, seeing a woman fighting for her survival. That moment birthed 2 factions. My father's allies, who branded me selfish, and my supporters, who saw my defiance as courage. Seaside would never be the same. Let me take you back to how it all began, to the storm-soaked streets of Seaside, where the Pacific's roar mirrors the chaos of my family. I grew up in a sprawling Victorian house that screamed old money but hid a rotting core. My father, a real estate developer whose empire was crumbling under bad deals, and my mother, a socialite obsessed with appearances, lived beyond their means. Credit card debt piled up like driftwood, and they refinanced our home 3 times to keep the illusion alive. My brother Liam, 4 years my senior, was their pride and joy, a charming disaster who could do no wrong. By 16, he'd totaled his first Porsche, paid for by our parents. By 20, he'd blown through a trust fund on a crypto scam. By 33, he was running a nightclub that doubled as a front for shady deals, each failure cushioned by Victor and Margaret's checkbook. I was the odd one out, the daughter who refused to drown in their chaos. While Liam partied, I worked. The summer before college, I juggled 2 internships and a night shift at a cannery, the stench of fish clinging to me as I saved for tuition. My parents had nothing for my education. Every penny went to Liam's potential. So I fought for scholarships, earned a 4 GPA, and graduated with a marine biology degree, debt-free. My colleagues called me obsessive, but I had a vision: to save endangered coral reefs, ecosystems teetering on the brink. For 7 years, I lived in a cramped studio, drove a rusting Subaru, and funneled every spare dollar into my grant fund. That $75,000, 0 cents wasn't just money. It was my future, my proof that I could rise above the Hayes family curse. Nathan Bennett changed everything. I met him 3 years ago at a coastal engineering conference, his quiet confidence a stark contrast to the slick men I'd dated before. A coastal engineer with a knack for designing storm barriers, Nathan respected my boundaries. He didn't flinch when I insisted on splitting bills or explained my grant fund, a dream I'd nurtured before I even knew him. When we got engaged, he added to the fund, but the bulk was mine, a testament to my discipline. We planned our gala at Cliffside Manor, a cliff-top estate with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the churning Pacific. I paid the deposit, hand-picked the orchids, and strung fairy lights myself, envisioning a night of joy. But my family had other plans. 3 months before the gala, Liam's nightclub imploded. He'd borrowed $100,000, 0 cents, from a loan shark named Marco, a hulking figure tied to Seaside's underground fight club. The club wasn't just a dive bar, it was a front for illegal betting and worse. Liam, true to form, had gambled the loan on a failed VIP expansion, leaving him at Marco's mercy. My parents, already stretched thin by their own debts, had drained their retirement to give him $30,000, 0 cents. But it wasn't enough. Margaret started calling me daily, her voice syrupy with concern for Liam's stress. Victor dropped hints about my grant, calling my choral project a hobby. I saw the trap forming, but I never imagined they'd spring it so brutally. The gala started like a dream. The manor's ballroom glowed with candlelight, the air thick with the scent of roses and sea salt. Nathan looked devastating in a tailored navy suit, his hand steady on mine as we welcomed our guests. His parents, Ellen and Richard, flew in from San Diego, their warmth a stark contrast to my family's chill. Ellen gifted me a sapphire necklace, something blue for our wedding, and I felt a pang of longing for a family that didn't see me as a cash machine. My mentor, Dr. Clara Wells, a renowned oceanographer, toasted our future, her pride in my work making my chest swell. Even my cousin Sophie, a journalist who'd grown distant, showed up, her sharp eyes scanning the room. Then my family arrived, 40 minutes late, a storm cloud in human form. Victor's tie was crooked, his breath heavy with whiskey. Margaret's smile was brittle, her designer gown a size too tight. Liam slouched in a leather jacket, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. "Nice party, Ellie," he muttered, not meeting my gaze. "Must have cost a fortune." I brushed it off, guiding him to the bar, but his phone buzzed incessantly, and he kept glancing at Victor. Something was wrong, but I pushed the feeling down. This was my night. An hour in, the mood shifted. I was laughing with Clara when 3 men in black suits pushed through the entrance, their faces hard and eyes cold. The tallest, a scar running down his cheek, scanned the room until his gaze locked on me. "Eleanor Hayes," he growled, striding forward, a knife glinting in his hand. The crowd parted, murmurs rising. Nathan stepped in front of me, but the man, Marco, I realized, shoved him aside. "Your brother owes me," he said, voice low and lethal. "Pay up or this party gets messy." My heart pounded as guests backed away, some pulling out phones to record. I squared my shoulders. "I don't owe you anything," I said. "Take it up with Liam." Marco laughed, a sound like gravel. "Oh, we will. But Victor says you've got the cash. Hand it over or we start breaking things. Starting with you." Before I could respond, Victor appeared, his face flushed. "Eleanor." "Don't make this worse," he snapped. "Give them the grant money. Liam's life depends on it." The room spun. My own father was selling me out to a thug in front of everyone I loved. Nathan grabbed my hand, whispering, "Don't do it." Clara and Sophie flanked me, their presence a silent vow of support. But Margaret's voice cut through, shrill and accusing. How can you let your brother die over some fish?" The crowd split. Half the guests, Victor's allies, local business owners he'd charmed over the years, nodded, murmuring about family loyalty. The other half, my faction, Nathan, Clara, Sophie, and a few colleagues, glared at Victor, seeing his manipulation for what it was. I took a breath, my voice steady despite the knife 10 feet away. "I've worked 7 years for that grant. It's for the planet, not Liam's mistakes. Find another way." Marco's eyes narrowed, but before he could move, Victor lunged. His hands hit my shoulders, shoving me backward with a force that stole my breath. I stumbled, crashing into the glass sculpture, a delicate spiral of ocean waves I'd commissioned for the gala. It shattered, shards slicing my arm as I fell. Blood soaked my sleeve, warm and sticky, and pain seared through me. The room erupted in screams. Nathan roared, rushing to my side, but Victor loomed over me, unrepentant. "You selfish brat," he spat. "You'd rather let your brother die than give up your little science project?" Something snapped inside me. I staggered to my feet, blood dripping, and grabbed the nearest champagne bottle. With a swing, I smashed it against the floor, glass spraying like shrapnel. Holding the jagged neck, I pointed it at Victor. "Back off." My voice was a growl, raw and unyielding. The crowd gasped, some stepping back, others leaning forward. Margaret shrieked, "Eleanor, have you lost your mind?" Liam smirked, as if enjoying the chaos, but Nathan's hand on my shoulder grounded me, and Clara's nod from across the room told me I wasn't alone. The divide was clear. Victor's faction, Margaret, Liam, and their cronies, whispered about my hysteria, painting me as the villain who'd abandon her brother to thugs. My faction, Nathan, Clara, Sophie, and a handful of guests who knew my story, saw a woman pushed too far, fighting for her life's work. The tension crackled, a live wire in a storm. Then Nathan pulled out his phone, dialing 911. "We need police at Cliffside Manor," he said, his voice calm but firm. "There's been an assault." Victor laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "Assault? She's my daughter. I'm teaching her a lesson." But his bravado faltered as sirens wailed in the distance. Marco and his goons slipped out, their threat lingering like smoke. I lowered the bottle, my arm throbbing, and met Victor's eyes. "You've taught me plenty," I said quietly, "but not what you think." The police arrived, 4 officers in crisp uniforms cutting through the chaos. Officer Dana Ruiz, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, approached me first. "You're Eleanor Hayes?" she asked, noting my bloodied arm. I nodded, explaining Victor's assault and Marco's threats. Nathan handed her my phone, where I'd synced footage from the manor's security cameras I'd insisted on installing after hearing rumors of Liam's death. The footage was damning. Victor's shove, the sculpture's collapse, Marco's knife. Ruiz's jaw tightened as she watched. Across the room, Victor argued with another officer, his voice slurring. "She provoked me. She's letting her brother die." Margaret clung to his arm, sobbing theatrically, while Liam hung back, texting furiously. But the cameras didn't lie. Ruiz cuffed Victor, reading him his rights as the crowd whispered. Some guests, Victor's allies, muttered about family business, while others, my supporters, clapped quietly, their respect a lifeline. As Victor was led away, he turned, his eyes burning into mine. "This isn't over, Eleanor. You think you're safe? Marco knows where you live." A chill ran through me, but I held his gaze. "Neither are you," I shot back. Nathan wrapped his jacket around my shoulders, guiding me to a paramedic for my arm. Sophie appeared, her face pale but determined. "I got it all," she said, showing me her phone. Every moment, from Marco's entrance to Victor's arrest, recorded. This is going viral. The gala was ruined, the fairy lights dimmed by betrayal. But as I sat in the ambulance, Nathan by my side, I felt a strange clarity. My family had always been a house of cards, and tonight I'd kicked it down. What I didn't know, what keeps me up at night even now, was how deep their secrets ran. Who was Marco really working for? Why did Victor think he could control me with violence? And what did Liam know that he wasn't saying? That night, as the paramedics stitched my arm, my phone buzzed with a blocked number. I answered, my heart racing. A voice, low and guttural, filled the line. "You've got 1 week to pay Liam's debt or your precious boat sinks, with you on it." The line went dead. I stared at the ocean beyond the manor, its waves churning under a storm cloud. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was survival. The days that followed were a blur of police statements and sleepless nights. Nathan installed alarms at our seaside cottage, his engineering precision a comfort against the unknown. Clara offered me a safe house at her research lab, but I refused. Running wasn't my style. Instead, I dug into Victor's finances, hacking into old family accounts with passwords he'd never bothered to change. What I found made my blood run cold. $50,000, 0 cents, embezzled from my late grandmother's trust, funneled into Liam's nightclub. Worse, Victor had told our relatives I'd spent it on my fancy science, turning them against me. Aunt Lydia, my grandmother's sister, called the next day, her voice icy. "How could you steal from your own family, Eleanor?" I tried to explain, but she hung up, one of many relatives poisoned by Victor's lies. The betrayal cut deeper than the glass. Then Sophie reached out, her journalist instincts kicking in. "I'm leaking this to the Seaside Gazette," she said, sending me a draft exposing Victor's embezzlement. "You're not alone." Her support was a spark in the dark, but the danger was closing in. 5 days after the gala, I was out at dawn, checking a research buoy off the coast. The sea was restless, waves slapping my small boat. I was adjusting the buoy's sensors when a speedboat roared out of the fog, its hull black and unmarked. It rammed my starboard side, nearly capsizing me. I clung to the railing, my heart hammering as the boat circled, its driver hidden behind tinted glass. "Pay up, Hayes," a voice shouted before the speedboat vanished into the mist. I limped back to shore, my boat damaged but afloat, and filed a report with Ruiz. "Could be Marco," she said grimly. "Or someone closer." That someone closer haunted me. Liam had been at the gala, smirking as Victor attacked me. Had he hired the boat to scare me? I confronted him at his nightclub, a neon-soaked dive reeking of sweat and desperation. "Did you send that boat?" I demanded, pushing through a crowd of drunk patrons. Liam leaned back, his smile venomous. "You're paranoid, Ellie, but keep poking around, and you'll wish you'd paid up." I grabbed a bar stool, slamming it down to silence the room. "You're done hiding behind Dad," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your club's a front, and I'm exposing it." The crowd murmured, some cheering, others sneering. I'd just declared war. That night I came home to find our cottage ransacked. My research notes, years of data on coral bleaching, were gone, and a warning was carved into my desk. Last chance. Nathan held me as I shook, but I refused to break. The next morning I met with Clara, who connected me to an FBI contact investigating Seaside's Fight Club. "Your father's been laundering money through his real estate for years," Agent Torres said. "Liam's club is part of it. Help us and we'll protect you." I agreed, but the weight of betrayal grew heavier. My family wasn't just dysfunctional, they were criminal. The final blow came at a family meeting Margaret insisted on, held at their gaudy mansion. I went, hoping for answers, but found only venom. Margaret slapped me across the face, her rings cutting my cheek. "You're tearing us apart," she screamed, as Liam watched, his smirk now a mask. Victor, out on bail, said nothing, his silence louder than her rage. I walked out, blood trickling down my face, and vowed to end this. Sophie's article hit the Gazette that night, detailing Victor's crimes. Seaside erupted, half the town calling me a hero, the other half a traitor. As I write this, I'm staring at the ocean, Nathan asleep beside me. Marco's threat looms, and the stolen notes could destroy my project. Who's pulling the strings? Victor, Liam, or someone bigger? Why did Margaret's slap feel like a warning, not just anger? And what's in those notes that someone's willing to kill for? I'm not the girl who smashed that bottle anymore. I'm a woman fighting for her life, her love, and her truth. And I'm just getting started. The ocean roared outside our seaside cottage, its fury matching the storm in my chest. A week had passed since my engagement gala at Cliffside Manor, where my father, Victor Hayes, shoved me into a glass sculpture, splintering my dreams and my arm. The stitches itched under the bandage, a constant reminder of his betrayal. I'd refused to hand over my $75,000 0-cents research grant to save my brother Liam from his $100,000 0-cents debt to a loan shark named Marco, tied to Seaside's underground fight club. That choice had split my family and this town into two camps: Victor's allies, who branded me a selfish traitor, and my supporters, my fiancé Nathan, my mentor Dr. Clara Wells, and my cousin Sophie, who saw my defiance as survival. Now, with Victor out on bail and Marco's midnight threat to sink my research vessel echoing in my ears, I was fighting not just for my coral restoration project, but for my life. I sat at our kitchen table, the cottage's new alarms blinking red in the pre-dawn gloom. Nathan slept upstairs, his engineering tools scattered from installing the security system after quitting his job to protect me. My laptop glowed with Victor's financial records, hacked from old family accounts. The $50,000, 0 cents, he'd embezzled from my grandmother's trust stared back at me, a theft he'd pinned on my fancy science. Relatives like Aunt Lydia shunned me, believing his lies. But Sophie's article in the Seaside Gazette, exposing his crimes, had shifted the tide. Half of Seaside now saw Victor for what he was, a manipulator, not a murderer. The other half, his cronies, flooded social media with venom, calling me a liar, tearing apart a good family. My phone buzzed, shattering the silence. A blocked number. My pulse spiked, but I answered, steeling myself. "You're out of time, Hayes," Marco's gravelly voice snarled. "Pay Liam's debt by midnight, or your boat's at the bottom of the Pacific, with you on it." Before I could respond, a loud crack echoed outside like wood splintering. I dropped the phone and grabbed the baseball bat by the door, my heart hammering. The alarm stayed silent, but the shadows beyond the window moved. Someone was out there. I crept to the porch, the bat heavy in my hands. The salt air stung my stitches as I scanned the darkness. Our mailbox lay smashed, a brick beside it, and a note pinned under the rubble. Pay or burn. My breath caught. This wasn't just Marco's Fight Club goons. It felt personal, like Liam's smirk at the gala or Margaret's slap at the family meeting, her rings cutting my cheek. I snapped a photo of the note and called Officer Dana Ruiz, who'd arrested Victor. "I'm sending a patrol," she said, her voice tight. "Stay inside, Eleanor. This is escalating." Nathan woke to the sirens, his face hardening as I showed him the note. "We're not running," he said, pulling me close, "but we need answers." He was right. Victor's ties to the Fight Club, uncovered by the police, were just the surface. Why was Marco so fixated on me? What did Liam know that he wasn't saying? I turned back to my laptop, digging deeper into Victor's accounts. A hidden transaction caught my eye. $20,000 0 cents wired to a shell company, Coastal Ventures, the day before the gala. The name nagged at me. Hadn't Liam mentioned a venture at his nightclub? Before I could investigate, Sophie called, her voice urgent. "Eleanor, check the Gazette's site. I dug into Coastal Ventures. It's a front for the Fight Club, and Victor's name is all over it. I pulled up her article, my stomach dropping. Victor hadn't just laundered money, he'd brokered deals for Marco, using his real estate to hide bets and blood money. Sophie's exposé included a photo of Victor shaking hands with a man I recognized, Marco scar and all, at a charity gala Victor had hosted last year. The comments section was a war zone. Victor's allies called it fake news, while my supporters demanded his arrest. Seaside was tearing itself apart, and I was the lightning rod. I needed to see Clara. Her research lab, perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, was my sanctuary. I drove through a brewing storm, the sky bruised with clouds. Clara met me at the door, her silver hair pulled back, her eyes sharp with concern. "You're not safe," she said, leading me to her office. "But you're not alone." She handed me a USB drive. I had a friend at the FBI pull records on Coastal Ventures. Victor's been funneling money to Marco for a decade, and Liam's nightclub is the latest hub. There's more. Someone else is pulling strings. Someone big. I plugged in the drive, my hands shaking. Bank statements, encrypted emails, and a name. R. Caldwell. No first name, no address, just a ghost in the machine. "Who's Caldwell?" I asked. Clara shook her head. "That's what scares me. They're deep in the Fight Club, maybe higher. You're stirring a hornet's nest, Eleanor." Her warning echoed Marco's threat, but I couldn't stop. My grant, my work, my life, they were all on the line. I copied the files and left, promising to stay vigilant. The storm broke as I drove home, rain lashing my Subaru. My phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "Check your buoy, now." My research buoy, moored a mile offshore, held critical data for my coral project. Against my better judgment, I headed to the marina. The notes burned, searing my mind. The dock was deserted, waves crashing against the pilings. My small boat rocked as I climbed aboard, the engine sputtering to life. I shouldn't have gone alone, but time was slipping away. Halfway to the buoy, a speedboat materialized from the rain, its black hull slicing the waves. It rammed my port side, the impact throwing me to the deck. Water flooded the boat, and I scrambled for the radio, but it was dead. "Pay up, Hayes!" a voice bellowed, the same from the gala. Marco's men. The speedboat circled, its driver a shadow in the storm. I grabbed a flare gun, firing into the sky. The red arc a desperate SOS. The speedboat hesitated, then roared away as a Coast Guard cutter's lights pierced the fog. I collapsed, soaked and shaking, as the cutter pulled alongside. "You're lucky we were nearby," the captain said, towing me to shore. But luck felt like a lie. This was no accident. Someone wanted me dead. Back at the cottage, Nathan was furious. "You went out there alone?" he shouted, his fear raw. I showed him the text, the buoy unharmed, but my boat battered. "It's Liam," I said, the pieces clicking. He knew I'd checked the buoy. "He's working with Marco." Nathan's jaw tightened. Then we hit back. He called Sophie, who agreed to trace the text's origin. Meanwhile, I met with Agent Torres, the FBI contact Clara had connected me to. "Coastal Ventures is a front," he confirmed, his voice low. "But R. Caldwell's the key. They're not just a fight club, they're tied to offshore accounts, maybe drugs. Help us get Victor to talk, and we'll keep you safe." I agreed, but safety felt like a fantasy. That night I woke to shattering glass. Our cottage's front window was gone, a brick on the floor with another note, "You can't hide." The alarms blared, and Nathan grabbed his gun, a relic from his hunting days. We searched the property, finding footprints leading to the cliffs. "They're toying with us," Nathan said, his voice grim. I called Ruiz, who found no prints in the rain-soaked mud. "Marco's escalating," she said. "Or someone closer." Her words chilled me. Margaret's slap, Liam's smirk. Were they part of this? The next day, Margaret summoned me to their mansion, a gaudy monument to their lies. I went, armed with Sophie's article and Tora's files. The living room reeked of lavender and desperation, Margaret's eyes red from crying. Victor sat on bail, his face haggard, while Liam lounged, his leather jacket out of place. "We can fix this," Margaret pleaded. "Drop the charges, pay Liam's debt, and we're a family again." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Family? You slapped me, Mom. Victor tried to kill me, and Liam's a criminal." Margaret's hand lashed out, her ring slicing my cheek again. "You're destroying us," she screamed. Liam smirked, but Victor's silence was louder, his eyes darting to a locked drawer. I saw it. The ghost of a secret. "What's in there, Dad?" I asked, stepping closer. He lunged, knocking over a lamp, but I was faster, grabbing the drawer's key from his pocket. Inside was a ledger, names and numbers in Victor's scrawl. Caldwell appeared, tied to a $200,000 0-cents transfer. "You're done," I said, pocketing the ledger. Margaret screamed. Liam lunged, but I was out the door, Nathan's car idling outside. Sophie met us at the lab, her face pale. "The text came from a burner phone, bought at a gas station near Liam's club." She'd also traced Coastal Ventures to a P.O. box in Portland, linked to Caldwell. "This is bigger than Victor," she said. "Caldwell's untouchable." I handed her the ledger and she gasped. "This could bring them down." But before we could plan, my phone rang. "Clara," her voice shaking, "the lab's been trashed. Your coral samples are gone." I raced to the lab, my heart in my throat. Tanks were smashed, years of research destroyed. A note was taped to my desk. "Next time, it's you." Clara hugged me, her strength a lifeline. "We'll rebuild," she said, but I saw the fear in her eyes. Nathan called Taurus, who arrived with a team. "This is retaliation," he said. "Victor's protecting Caldwell." I gave him the ledger, my hands steady despite the chaos. "Take them down," I said. "All of them." The town was a powder keg. Sophie's next article, detailing the ledger, went viral, splitting Seaside further. Victor's allies protested outside the courthouse, waving signs about family values. My supporters rallied at the marina, chanting for justice. I spoke at a town hall, my voice raw but clear. "I'm fighting for my work, my life, and the truth. Victor's not a victim. He's a criminal." The crowd roared, some with cheers, others with boos. A rock sailed from the back, grazing my shoulder. Nathan pulled me behind him, but I stepped forward. "I'm not afraid," I lied, my voice carrying. That night, I dove into the Pacific, checking a backup buoy I'd hidden after the boat attack. The water was cold, the current strong, but I needed the data. My oxygen tank hissed, then faltered. Panic seized me as I clawed for the surface, my vision blurring. I broke through, gasping, and saw a figure on my boat. Liam, his face twisted with guilt. "I didn't mean for this," he shouted, helping me aboard. "Caldwell's running everything. Dad's just a pawn." I coughed, my lungs burning. "Then tell the truth," I said. He shook his head, diving into the water, vanishing. I told Torres about Liam's confession, but he was gone, his nightclub shuttered. Victor's trial loomed and Margaret called, her voice broken. "Help us, Eleanor. Caldwell's threatening us all." I hung up, her plea a trap. But at the trial I testified, the ledger my weapon. Victor's face crumpled as I detailed his crimes: assault, embezzlement, laundering. The courtroom buzzed, cameras flashing. Margaret stormed out, but Sophie squeezed my hand. "You did it," she whispered. Victor was sentenced to 3 years, with restitution and counseling. Liam surfaced, turning state's evidence against Caldwell, who vanished into the shadows. My coral samples were gone, but Clara secured a new grant, and Nathan and I planned a small wedding on the beach, our love stronger for the scars. Seaside healed, its factions fading as truth won. I stood on the shore, the tide pulling back, and knew I'd rebuilt more than my project. I'd rebuilt myself. This fight taught me that boundaries aren't betrayal, they're freedom. If you've faced family pressure, know you're not alone. Share your story, and let's redefine what family means.